Hi, my name's Daver and welcome to my shop. In this video, I'm going to give you a tour of my wood shop, so stick around. This is Daver Made. So to just give you some background on my shop, this shop was a 2-car garage that is attached to my house. I ripped all the walls down, re-insulated it, and then put new drywall up and converted this into the shop you see here. The more I learn, the more I realize how many mistakes I made setting the shop up, and some of the shop furniture isn't put together that well, and there are some other things that I probably could have thought out, but I'm learning, and I didn't know at the time what I know now. So there'll probably be some updates in the future. The square footage of this shop is about 460 square feet. I made everything mobile for the most part, so if I had to get a car in here, I could. In my shop, you're not gonna find high-end tools such as Festool or Grizzly or Powermatic. You're also not gonna find any woodpeckers tools in my shop, even though I live about 10 minutes from their headquarters. The reason being is I am not there yet in my woodworking journey. I'm slowly upgrading the things in my shop. I'm using the tools that I started out with, tools that I've purchased used, tools that have been given to me by family members or I've inherited from family members. So in my shop, you'll notice Craftsman, Harbor Freight, Wen, Skill Saw, and other tools that are comparable to that. They're really good to start off on. They say that it's the carpenter, not the tool, that matters. What if the carpenter doesn't know what the hell they're doing though? There are many people out there that can't afford very high-end tools, and I see a lot of shop videos that do highlight those. However, you don't need them when you're starting off. My shop's kind of a beginner's shop with a lot of beginner's tools. That said, let's get started. I think the best place to start my shop tour is right at the workbench, which I know it's a cliche to say that the table saw and the workbench are the heart of the shop, but it is true because it's in the middle of my shop. I do most of my work here at this workbench. This workbench is 8 feet long by just over 4 feet wide, and it gives me plenty of room for assembly and glue ups and working on many other things. I really do like this workbench. The size is great for assembly, glue ups, and also outfeed from my table saw. It's mobile and it has a lot of room underneath for storage and things like that. The top is MDF, and I routed out some miter slots for table saw jigs and things like that. I didn't do the best job. They're not that accurate, but again, I didn't have the best straight edge. You're also not gonna find any woodpeckers tools in my shop. I would say that this was a really good project to give me some experience with woodworking, and I think shop furniture is a really good way to practice, where the stakes are kind of low if you screw up and they don't have to look perfect. On the end of my workbench, I have my table saw, and I use the workbench as an outfeed table. So this is a skill saw, and I'm actually no longer using this because I replaced it with a SawStop job site saw. However, I was using this saw and it was fantastic. It's a really good table saw and I won't be keeping it. I could use it as a dado saw, but I'm not gonna have that safety feature, which is why I went with the SawStop. So I probably will replace this with the SawStop, but right now, until I sell this and get it cleaned up, it's just gonna stay here, and I'm gonna use the stand for the SawStop. Underneath here, I have all my table saw accessories and jigs. So I have like my Rockler miter gauge and the fence. I also have my Rockler straight line rip jig here. Not really organized too well. It's just out of the way, and I had a spot for it. I also have a box joint jig under here, and some other jigs that I just have out of the way. In addition to having some jigs down here, I also have some dust collection accessories, such as some clamps and other attachments, adapters, things like that. Just, it was a spot that I had to keep it out of the way. So just trying to utilize the space as best as I can. On the other side, that's where I also keep my push sticks and my push block here. It's just easy to have it right next to the table saw. However, with the saw stop, I have to kind of move them over to another bench when I use it. So let's take a look at the middle, which there's a lot of junk. I don't know if I should show it, but I think I will. All right, so this is one side of the workbench that I generally don't show too much in my videos, if at all. This is just where I keep some things. So this is just like my travel work bag, some blue painter's tape. This is my first Shopvac that I used for a dedicated dust collection for my table saw. Not the best, but I had it, and the table saw is right there, and this fit nicely under. This is where I keep some safety materials, some disposable gloves, safety goggles, plastic sheets, things that Dexter would have in his car. Then these are things like dust masks, reusable dust masks that I have, and then I have a whole thing of gloves. I bought these early on when I first started working on this shop, and these are not the best, but they were cheap, and I didn't have the ambition to build anything yet, so I just bought these. I probably will cover this all up and build drawers and cabinets and things like that. I think that is in the 2.0 version of this or new workbench that I will make hopefully in the future. Now, one thing I should say about the workbench, I do have 2 videos on how I made it. I used 2x4s and pocket holes and butt joints and all sorts of things. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of what I knew at the time. And it's on some pretty heavy casters. However, I didn't secure them properly. So a couple of times this thing has blown a flat tire, and I've had to jack it up and fix the wheels on the bottom, moving it around. So this is the other side of my workbench. I just have a bunch of hardware and screws and nails and all types of stuff. I have some blades here that I need to build some sort of organization for. Table saw blades, circular saw blades, and I have a brick here. This is just for a branding iron that I can set down on. I have my electrical specific tool bag here that I can use and just grab and go. In the back, I also have a dedicated toolbox just for plumbing things, edge banding, corner clamps. I have a doweling jig under here, a random old can of stain that I need to get rid of. Just more shit down here that's out of the way. Somewhat organized. It definitely could be better, and again, in the future when I redesign another workbench or upgrade this existing one, I'm going to keep that in mind, just to have it a little bit cleaner, or at least just put doors on it so you don't even see it. Also have my power strip. This is just from Amazon. It does what it does. I got a battery charging on here for the camera. I plug power tools in here. I got my architect lamp plugged in here, and then I don't know if you can see this, but I am kneeling on this Rockler Anti-Fatigue Mat. I have 2 of them on each side, and this really helps, especially when you're standing over the workbench for a long period of time, especially when you're sanding. This has really saved my back, having these Rockler Anti-Fatigue Mats, and they've held up pretty well. So definitely recommend them. Like I said, I have 2, 1 on each side. I wish my entire shop floor was just this material, but you know, they don't make them that big. Moving on. Now at the end of the workbench, I keep my router table. It's a Bosch router table. I did a video on the router and the router table. I'll probably do a follow-up video. I don't really have a spot for it, so I just put it here on the end of my workbench. It's done fine. I like where it's at. The dust collection though does get in the way of the fence of the table saw, or vice versa. I do have to consider that when I'm hooking up dust collection. It's been good. It's a good location for it. I'll probably create a dedicated cart in the future just for the router table. Right there is my Wen Air Filtration System. It's a 3-speed system, and I can use a remote control just to turn it on or off. It does a pretty good job. I think this is a good entry air filtration system for the amateur, beginning, hobbyist woodworker. Just leave the shop, click it on, and it does a pretty good job clearing the air. And it's nice and up and out of the way, so you don't have to worry about it getting in your way, especially in a shop that isn't that big, or medium-sized shop like mine. All right, I think the next thing to show in my shop are my mobile carts. There are 3 mobile carts. I think that it's very important when you're in a shop that isn't that big, or you're using it more than a shop, such as a garage that is attached to your house that you need to share with non-woodworking things. It's good to put it on wheels so you can move it and get it out of the way. These carts that I made here are made from 2x4s that I recycled from the previous homeowner's old workbench, which was a piece of garbage. So I took it apart and it was inside the house in our laundry room. And I repurposed all those pieces of lumber into these mobile carts. Bought some MDF, used some other scrap just on the edges. I have a pole handle for each of these. Another thing that these carts have is some pegboard. Our laundry room had this pegboard from floor to ceiling that I ripped out. I painted it black and I attached it to these mobile work carts. I'm just gonna go over what's on each cart. So this cart has my 12.5-inch Wen thickness planer. This thing is pretty heavy, so I don't have to worry about it too much moving or shaking on me. I find that this, in feed, out feed, does a pretty good job. This lunchbox planer has done me well, but the blades do get dull pretty quickly, and I've gotten some chips on the blades that I've had to change them out a few times. It does its job. I think I'm going to be outgrowing it in the next year or so, so I'll be looking to upgrade my planer. However, it is nice being able to put it on this cart and move it out of the way all around the shop. It was fairly inexpensive and a good starting lunchbox planer. On this side, I have my Harbor Freight reciprocating saw, oscillating tool, and I have some extension cords. It's a really good spot to put these things on. It's definitely a way to utilize space that you don't necessarily have. On the back side here, this is for bike repairs. So it flips up. Again, just trying to make the most of the small space that I have. I can flip this down. I put my bike on here, clamp it down just for a little bit more, stabilization. And I worked on a couple bikes in here, just restoring them in the summertime. All my work carts have a power strip here. I can plug this into an extension cord, wheel it around the shop, and it gives me some extra outlets. It's nice to have extra power around the shop, and especially you can move that power source. Just a bucket of random casters. I'm gonna move this back. Ugh, there we go. So this is a 9-inch bandsaw that my dad gave me. It's a Delta bandsaw. This thing is pretty awesome, but I definitely could use a 14-inch bandsaw in the shop. However, it being a benchtop bandsaw, I can store it under here, take it out, put it on the bench, put it on one of the other carts that I have on here, swap out the tools. It's nice to be able to store some of the tools down here, swap them out. I made these knowing not too much about woodworking. These were kind of the start of the shop furniture and then my journey into woodworking, a little bit more hardcore, I guess. And they've done well. A couple of things I wouldn't do for sure is paint it black or not finish the top. Probably needs to be redone, finished a little bit better for protection, but it's shop furniture and it's recycled, so whatever. Move the saw out of the way. We'll get to this later. This is another reason why I like having mobile carts. I can move everything. So this is my first Shopvac dust collector system. It's just the Home Depot dust stopper in the 5-gallon bucket and a rigid shop vac. And then I have some really long hoses that I believe are for a car kit. These work great for hand tools and also cleaning up around the shop, but it's not as powerful as, a dedicated dust collector. I still use it for sanding and some other things and cleaning up around the shop. And I put it on this cart, very similar design to the other cart, just has a smaller top that I cut a hole out for the bucket. I use one of these ladder holders from Menards or something as hold the hoses, and then there's a hook back here for the power cord, but obviously I'm not using it. And then I gotta figure out how to make something to hold all the tools and the accessories for it, because right now they just kind of get in the way. So this is the last cart. This is my miter saw. It's a Craftsman. Save your comments. 10-inch miter saw, sliding miter saw. It does fine. I have no issues with it. Is it a precise tool? No, but it gets the job done. I also have my air compressor, a little pancake air compressor. I have some shop brushes. Then on the other side, I have more pegboard, and I have my air tools, my pneumatic nailers and staplers, and then I have all my staples and nails down in a little basket below. Blue shop towels, these are the best, you can never have enough. In the back here, I also have another power strip as well. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is that the casters lock. I think that's very important, especially when you are using the miter saw or anything like that. That's it for my mobile work carts, tool carts. I don't really know what I call them. They're just mobile tool work carts. And they fit nice and neatly out of the way, though I have to make sure if I ever open up the garage door that the arm's not all the way out, because bad things happen. Ask me how I know. This is my dust collector. It's a Wen dust collector. I have a lot of Wen products. Not sponsored by them, they're just affordable and they have decent reviews, so they work and they don't break the bank. And I've not had any issues with most of the Wen products. So when are we going to have a sponsorship? I don't know. Anywho, this dust collector is awesome. It's on a French cleat that I hang up here on the wall. I have my garbage for the sawdust underneath. You just unzip it and it all comes out. And I also got this hooked up to one of these Harbor Freight remote outlet switches. So I can just, anywhere I'm at, turn it on, turn it off, and I probably will move this to the opposite side of the shop so I can run some piping in here for dust collection, but I have to sit down and really figure it out. Right now I just have a 10-foot hose that's coupled by another 10-foot hose, and I use that to whatever tools I need in the shop, and it's been doing a pretty good job. So very happy I got this. It's definitely better than having a Shopvac. I use this for my table saw, my jointer, my planer, and then just basic cleanup, and it has been tremendous. So very happy I got this. It was a good deal. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't get one sooner. It's not like a crazy heavy duty dust collector, but for the amount of woodwork I'm doing at this time and for this shop, it makes the most sense right now. It does the job. Here, as I already mentioned that the dust collector is on a French cleat, I have a mini French cleat wall. To be honest, I really didn't know what I was doing when I made it, and I would definitely make it a little bit nicer than what it is. I'd probably put some OSB to reinforce it on the back and make it go all the way up to the ceiling. Now I still could do that, but I'm not really sure if I'm going to do that or not. I have this tool drill holder. I have a brad nailer, and then I have my red tools and then my other nicer red tools. So I also keep some jigsaw blades, hacksaw blades, Forstner bits, socket set, chargers, batteries. I have a concealed hinge jig right here from Craig. And then up at the top, I have belt sander and a couple orbit sanders, my battery operated circular saw. I also have some power here so I can plug the chargers in. Got my IsoTunes Link headphones. And then I made this sanding organizer for my sandpaper and also to put my orbit sander on there. These dados are awful. I did these with a router and a straight edge and some scrap plywood. I guess it's fine. It does the job. Don't need to overbuild anything. And it was the first time I think I ever made any dados, to be honest. Hooray for me. Moving on. This is another bench that I have. It's a very cheap workbench. It was the first workbench that I made for this garage. First workbench I ever made. And it uses these plastic legs that you just use 2x4s, and this is particle board, which is a terrible top for this workbench, but it's nice to just have extra space, and I'm not really doing too much other than what you see here. So I have some old hand tools that I'm currently in the process of restoring, and an old bench vise. This is a number 7 Stanley plane that I actually got at a thrift store for $70. So it's in actually pretty good shape, and I'm going to restore it I would really like to get into hand tool woodworking in the next year or two, so we'll see how it goes. Then I have an old disc sander. This is a Delta Milwaukee Homecraft disc sander. I think it's really cool to have older tools. They're built better and they're built to last, apparently, so they're not in too bad shape. So yeah, that's what's on the bench, and I have a vise over here, but who cares about that? At the end of the workbench, I have my 12-speed bench drill press, and it's a Central Machinery one from Harbor Freight. I got it on sale for like, I don't know, $100, and this thing is pretty good, to be honest. You can change the speeds by changing the belts, and it's a really nice benchtop drill press, and it comes in handy. I don't use a drill press that much, but when I do, it's never failed me yet, and I'm very happy with it. Underneath the bench is where I store my 8-inch Wen jointer and my spindle sander. Again, more Wen tools. Are they the best tools? No, but they do what they need to do for me and where I'm at in my woodworking. So I will say one thing, that it's very inconvenient to store these down here. I do have to swap them out with some other tools or move them to the main workbench when I need to use it. But when you have limited space, you gotta do what you gotta do, and it's just a minor inconvenience. Underneath, I also have some miscellaneous tools, rasps, things like that, and heat gun and other junk that I don't need. Another thing that I have under the bench, I have this box here, which was a prototype for the Catan box that I made. And on the inside, I just store some more hand tools that I've acquired over the last year or so. I've used some of these. I use these for my dining room tabletop to flatten the top, and they're really nice. So again, want to get into the hand tool game a little bit more, so I'm excited to learn more about it. I have a coat rack that I made out of some pallet boards. Again, one of the first things that I made for the shop, just to hang up some tool pouches, one of my older shop aprons, tool belt that I use for generally stuff around the house. I don't use it for woodworking. This is for more when I do like DIY home improvement stuff. Some safety glasses, Budweiser drinking water. I also have a fraction to decimal conversion chart that I bought from April Wilkerson's website. Pretty handy. I use it all the time. It's great to have in the shop. I have first aid kit. And then I have this filing cabinet here where I have some glue that would be in the top portion of this filing cabinet. This filing cabinet cost me nothing. I got this from my neighbor's tree lawn, cleaned it up, good to go, great for shop storage. On the bottom, I have some mineral spirits, grease, WD-40, 3-in-1 oil, things like that in there. It's just nice to have a filing cabinet. Cost me nothing. I didn't have to build anything. Keep an eye out for people getting rid of these. They come in handy. The next thing I have over here is my lathe, and it's an old Atlas Press Company lathe. It was working, but when I plugged it in to use it, it gave me some shocks, so I'm gonna redo the electrical. My goal is in 2022 to restore this and start turning. I gotta change out the electrical. I don't know too much about that stuff, so I gotta learn or reach out to those who do. All right, so this is familiar. I generally include this in many of my videos. Here is my pegboard, which is one of the first things that I put up in the shop when I was remodeling it. I really liked having my tools out so I could see them and grab them as I needed them. It allows me to visually see what I have and what I can use for whatever it may be. Originally, this was built for just organizing my tools for working around the house. I was not committed to this woodworking journey yet when I built this pegboard wall, and I will say that between the French Cleat system and this, French Cleat hands down, way better. A few of these pegs have torn out over time and just fallen off when you grab a tool or anything like that, and it can be very frustrating. It looks cool visually, I like it. Again, I can kind of take a mental inventory, and it's a nice background for video, but in terms of functionality, French Cleat system is a lot better, in my opinion. You can move things a lot easier. This, on the other hand, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's cool looking, and Maybe one day I'll upgrade it. This is my clamp rack wall. Again, just using scrap wood to make this. It is a really good way to organize clamps. I have a bench grinder over here and just a mobile workbench down here. This is just a toolbox. You know what a toolbox is. Keep tools in it. These are more for like fixing my truck and other things like that. So we're almost at the end of my shop, just kind of circling around. I got this lumber rack on Amazon for like 50 bucks and it's done well. I probably need another one in here, but I don't have any room. So got my hardwood down here. I need a better system for these smaller cut off pieces, but I'm just trying to organize it best I can visually. And then the rest is just reclaimed wood and some old scraps that I got from when I started woodworking and just started using construction grade lumber. I still have some. One of the most important things in my shop that I have right now, especially this week when we are below 10 degrees Fahrenheit like every day, is a heater. This is a, I believe, Marley. This is a Marley engineered product electric wall heater. This thing has been a lifesaver. When I remodeled the shop, I had this installed and it has made working in here in the winter, which in Cleveland, it's winter probably most 80% of the year, it feels like. And I'm able to turn this on for a little bit before I come in the shop, warm it up, and I can work in a hoodie when it's 8 degrees outside. Sometimes I've been in a t-shirt. Sometimes it's too hot in here. This thing is great. I wanna say, so right now, I think it's 8 or 9 degrees outside Fahrenheit, and in the shop, it's, I think 60 degrees. It's awesome. I have some old liquor bottles here, not sponsored, could be. I'm using these bottles for finish. So I'm gonna start making, or at least try to make some of my own finishes, and I'm just gonna use these bottles to keep them in there. These creeper rolling seats are great to have, especially if you're working on finishing things lower or working on your vehicle or whatever. These things are great. So I got another filing cabinet from a neighbor who was getting rid of it, so it cost me nothing. And this is what I store all my finishes in. Here's my cutting board oil, not sponsored. I have these little cheap things to organize, like my foam brushes, some more finishes in here. And then down here, I have like spray lacquer, some brushes, some of these brushes I can use for glue or touch-ups, and I'm just using an old salsa jar to store them in. This is where I have some stains, which I don't really use too much stain anymore. I have some spray finishes, polyurethane, and Danish oil in here. Yeah. So yeah, that's my finishing cabinet. This is my Cat's Moses shop apron. I know I can put this on the coat rack on the other side, but I just like having it laid out here. It's all ready to go with everything I need. Then I have some rags and microfiber cloths, and I'm storing these in some Aldi pretzel rod containers that I cleaned out, and it's just a good place to store microfiber cloths, rags for finishing, things like that. And then here I just have some miscellaneous household items, so nothing really shop related. This is my dry erase board. Sometimes it's just better visually to write things out when you're working. I like to write in my notepad, which I have in here, but sometimes you just kind of have to brainstorm on the dry erase board. I don't know why, it just kind of fuels the creativity a little bit better. And here's the door into my shop. My dad got me this woodworking knowledge chart, which is really awesome. Down here I keep my clipboards, so when I'm working on a project, if I write out the plans or steps I need to take, I just have them right here on these clipboards. I completely stole this idea from a Bourbon Moth video when he was talking about working on client projects. He was using these clipboards, so I took that idea. Thanks a lot, buddy. You can't see it, but I do have a fridge. So this is a beverage fridge. And then on this wall, I have some remotes that are Velcroed to this wall right here. And this is my air filter remote. I have a thermometer that tells me the temperature and the humidity level. I have a mirror, just gotta make myself look good. And then I have the other remote for turning on the dust collector, and it's also hooked up to a couple other outlets. So I can hook up my Shopvacs to those, or I can hook up light or anything like that that I need to just remotely access. And I put it here with the Velcro so I don't ever lose it. So anytime I leave the shop, it's here, and then when I come in the shop, I can take that remote and take it to wherever I need, or have it with me in my shop apron. Of course, right now, the remote is somewhere in the shop. Now, I know he's busy talking about other things in the shop, but I didn't talk about my new saw, my Saw Stop job site saw. Just like everything else that's on wheels, this thing has been very, very, very nice. And it's super portable, easy to set up wherever I need it. I didn't want to go too much into this because I do have a video coming out on my first thoughts on this saw. So, spoiler, I like it. It's not perfect, but I like it. All right, well, that is it for my shop tour. I'm currently in the middle of upgrading my tools, certain things in the shop, just based on knowledge that I've been gaining over the last couple years. And I'm kind of in the middle right now. I'm not at the expert level. I'm more between a beginner and an intermediate woodworker, I would say. Shops transform over time, and the more you learn, the more you know what to do with your shop and how to organize it better and make it more efficient. I really like this shop. I put a lot into it. All that said, I hope you got something out of this video, and I appreciate you watching. Until next time, take care.